So section 3.3 talks about truth tables for what we're going to call conditional and biconditional statements, okay? So the first thing we have is something that we call a conditional statement, okay? So a conditional statement, obviously it means that there is a condition, right? It says if P, then Q, okay? So here is my truth table for, excuse me, let me get my pen to work. Sometimes it goes off. There we go. Okay. So here's my truth table for the conditional statement, okay? And to sort of help understand the idea of what a conditional statement means, again, it means there's going to be a condition. Okay, so I want you to look at what I'm using as an example for my statements. P is the statement, if you get an A. Q is the statement, I will buy you a car, okay? So if I were to sort of write that out, it would say, if you get an A, then I will buy you a car. Okay. So let's examine this. Okay. So look, the first statement is true and the second statement is true. So you get an A, then I will buy you a car. That would be a true statement, right? So if somebody told you, hey, if you get an A in their class, then they're going to buy you a car, and you got the A and they bought you the car, that means that they were being truthful, right? They did not lie to you. They upheld their obligation. Okay. Now, look at the first part here. If you get an A, suppose that's true. I will buy you a car. That is false. So what does that mean? That means that you got the A, but they didn't buy you the car. Then that means that they were not being truthful, and so the statement would then be false, right? They didn't uphold, their obligation, right? Okay. Now look at the next one here. It says false, then true. So it is false that you got an A. So suppose you did not get an A, but the person still bought you a car. They were still being truthful because their sentence just said, if you get an A, then I'll buy you a car. It didn't say the only way you're going to get a car is if you get an A. They just said, if you get an A, I'll buy you a car. But if you got a B, or even if you got an F, and they still bought you the car, they didn't lie to begin with, right? They were still being truthful. Okay. The first statement is false, and the second statement is false. If you get an A, then I will buy you a car. So what does that mean? You did not get the A, and they did not buy you a car. They were still being truthful. They still upheld their obligation, which was, if you get the A, I'll buy you a car, okay? So this idea here, guys, what I'm trying to sort of illustrate here is the understanding of what is if P, then Q means. So the one thing that I want to mention here is that if P, then Q is always going to be true unless we have a true statement in the beginning and then a false statement, then the overall answer will be false. Otherwise, it is always going to be true. Okay? So that's what this says right here. It says, if P then Q is true in every case except when P is true and Q is false, okay? So let me scroll down a little bit more so we can now talk about biconditional statements, okay? Biconditional statements is P if and only if Q. So I'm going to stick with the if you get an A, then, sorry about that, okay. I'm going to stick with the if you get an A, then I will buy you a car type of idea here, okay? So let me see if I can write this out. So I'll say, you get an A, and then it'll say if and only if I buy you a car. So I want us to sort of analyze what that means. If you get an A, I'm buying you a car. What it also means is The only way I'm buying you a car is if you get an A. Okay? So if I bought you a car, that means that you got an A. And if you got an A, that means I'm buying you a car, and there's no other way around it, okay? So let's see if we can examine what's going on here. The first one is true, the second one is true. So you got an A, I bought you a car. Of course, we're being truthful, right? Okay. Look at the next one. You got the A. I did not buy you the car. I was not being truthful, right? I should have bought you that car. Okay. You did not get the A, but I still bought you the car. Again, I was not being truthful because the only way you should be getting the car is if you got an A. And if you got an A, you're getting the car. And if you got a car, you had the A. There's no other way around it, okay? You did not get an A, and so therefore I did not buy you a car, and we were being truthful, okay? So I want to point out a couple of things here. So I'm going to kind of clean this up a little bit, okay? And I'm going to put in green, when is the biconditional statement true? And I'm going to put in F, when is the biconditional statement false? Okay. So the biconditional statement is going to be true when P and Q have the same truth values. What I mean by that is if they're both true, then it'll be true. And if they're both false, then it'll be true. It will be false if their truth values are not the same. Okay? And that's what we have right here. It says P if and only if Q is true when P and Q have the same truth values. That is when they're either both true or both false, okay? So I'm going to scroll down so I can do my next problem here, okay? So let's take a look and see what we have. It says, my directions here tell me, construct a truth table for this statement here, okay? So guys, I want to point out this problem here, I copied this directly from my math lab, okay? So if I was sitting where you're sitting, if I was doing this problem myself at home, the first thing I would notice is, look, I'm going to have to do not Q, okay? And I have a Q and I have a P, but I don't have a column for not Q. So what I would do is I would go like this. Let me make one for not Q, okay? And I'm going to write that in, okay? So I already know what the statements for Q looks like. So let me do not Q. So it's true, true, false, false. Then it should be false, false, true, true, okay? And now what I need to do is I need to figure out, what does this piece look like? Not Q, then P. Okay, not Q, then P. So I don't really need this bit of information anymore because we've already done the not Q part. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at not Q, then P. Okay? And so what I'm going to try to do here, guys, is I'm going to try to sort of match up what I'm doing. So not Q is false and then true. So here is my statement for the arrow, right? The conditional. The first one says it's false. The second one says it's true. So I'm going to go right here. Look, this one says it's false. This one says it's true. So my answer is going to be true. Okay. The second one says false and then false again. So false and then false again is going to be true. So that's going to be true. And then the third one says true and then true again. So I'm going to go true and then true again. Well, that's also going to be true. Okay. And then the last one says true and then false. Well, true and then false is going to be false. Okay. And now the other part that I have is, if you look here, we have that little negation sign in front of it. So all we're going to do is we're going to change these values. So if it used to be true, 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 false, it's now going to be false, 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 true, okay? So what I'm really focused here, guys, is not necessarily the letter P and Q with the way it's written here. I'm more concerned with the direction. So if you notice, the first one here was false and then true. I'm going to go to this piece because the first one is false and then true. I'm not so concerned, well, this one has a Q and the Q's over here. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the order. Okay, the order is what's going to tell me how I'm doing this. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down again, and I'm going to try to do the same thing for the next one. So I want you to notice here, it's asking me to do this for the biconditional, which is the double arrow, which is what I have right here. Okay, so just like I said earlier, guys, if you notice, look at what it's asking me to do. It's asking me to go not Q if and only if P. So the nice thing I like about this problem is that they're actually they're actually giving me the option of writing in a not Q. Okay, so here's my Q column, right? Now remember what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at these values here, and if I'm going to do the negation, I'm just going to change them. So if it was true, true, false, false, I'm now going to write false, false, true, true. Okay. Now that I did that, I don't need the Q anymore. Okay. And if you look here, this is P, and this is also P. I'm not going to do anything. It's not asking me to change anything. It's the same values. So if it was true, false, I'm going to do exactly that. True, false, false. Okay. And now we can go ahead and fill in our blanks. So I want you to notice the first one is false, the second one is true. If the first one is false and the second one is true, my overall answer is false. Okay. The first one is false and the second one is false. Well, if this is false and the second one is false, then my overall answer is true. Okay. And then if we have true and then true again, true and then true again is still true. And then true and then false, true and then false is going to be false. Okay. So I'm going to keep scrolling here, and we're going to try these next ones over here. Excuse me. All right. So this problem here is asking me to make a truth value for this statement. Now, this is a compound statement. It's got a lot of pieces to it, okay? So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to try to dissect it. I want you to notice the first piece I have here, guys, is a not n. So the first thing I'm going to do for right now, I'm going to go ahead and fill in my not n. So here is my n. Let's do the not n first, okay? So look at n. N is true, false, false. So it's just going to be the opposite. It's going to be false, true, okay? Now, I'm not going to get rid of my n just yet because this statement here is saying first m, then n with the conditional. What I mean by the conditional, the single arrow, which is what we have here. So look, it says true, then true. Well, true, then true is true. So I'm going to put a T right there. True, then false. Well, true, then false is false. So I'm going to put a false right here. False, then true is true. And false, then false is also true. Okay? All right. Now, I'm going to look at the next piece. So the next piece says we're going to take not n and then the double arrow, which is my biconditional, if m, then n. Okay? So guys, we already know what this column looks like because we did it right here. And we already know what this column looks like because we did it right there. Okay? So all that means I'm going to do now, I'm going to get rid of the things that I don't need to know anymore. And what I mean by get rid of, I'm just not going to focus on them, okay? So I'm not going to worry about this piece right here. I'm going to worry about this column and that column. Okay. And I'm using now my double arrow. Well, if you notice here is my double arrow. The first one is false and the second one is true. So false, then true is going to be false. Okay. The second one is true, then false. So true, then false is again false. Okay. And then we have false, then true. Well, here it is again. False, then true is again false. And then we finally have true, then true. That's the top one. True, then true will be true. Okay. All right. So again, they take time. I got to do them in pieces. Okay. This is not a problem that I can just say, oh, let me just run straight through it. It doesn't work that way. Okay. I got to do them all in small pieces. Okay. So let's see if we can do this next one here. Again, I'm going to go about it doing it exactly the same way. Okay, so it says, let's make a truth table for this piece here. Again, this is a compound statement, right? It's got more than one piece. It has this piece here, and it's got that piece there. There's a double arrow in the middle. So, guys, if you remember from 3.2, I'm going to go ahead and make the truth table right here for my OR, okay? And I'm going to do it very similar. I'm going to go A, then B, and this is telling me that we're going to use B then A, okay? Or B or A, I'm sorry. Okay. So instead of using P's and Q's, they're using A's and B's, but the idea is still the same, okay? So don't worry about, did they use P and Q, did they use M and N or A and B? The idea is still the same. So I'm going to go true, true, false, false, true, false, true, false. Okay, so guys, this here is what we call the disjunction or the OR. And if you remember from 3.2, the OR was true as long as one of them is true. So they're both true, we're good. As long as one of them is true, we're good. This one here is going to be false, okay? So give me 1 second. Okay, so I want you to notice something here. This piece right here is exactly what I have there. So I'm just going to copy those in. That's going to be true, 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 false, okay? Then I'm going to go ahead and do the second part, which is going to be B or A with a biconditional of B. Okay. So this is going to be the first column I look at, and this one is going to be the second one I look at, okay? So right now, I don't need to worry myself with that, so I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to go first this one, then that one. So notice the first one is true, the second one is true. Here we go. The first one is true, the second one is true. We're going to have a true statement. So put a big T right there. Okay. The first one is true, the second one is false. The first one is true, the second one is false. We're going to be false. Okay. The first one is true, the second one is true. That's the top one, which is also true. And the first one is false, and the second one is false. First one is false, second one is false. That's also going to be true. Okay. Again, guys, notice I'm trying to do all of these in little bitty pieces, right? I can't do it in one big step. Okay. All right. Excuse me, the next problem here says, let's find or fill in the truth table. We're going to fill in the blanks below. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So notice, here's X. First thing I'm going to do, not X. So if it's true, true, false, false, I'm going to go, so I can make that a little bit better. Okay, here we go. I'm going to go false, false, true, true. Okay. And then I'm going to do the conditional, which is the single arrow. Okay. So guys, if you notice here, I don't need to use this part anymore. Okay. I'm going to go from not X first to Y second. So notice it is first false, then true. First false, then true is going to be true. Okay. First false, then false. First false, then false is also true. First true, then true. First true, then true is also going to be true. And then first true and then false. First true and then false is going to be false. Okay. All right. So I got that piece. Okay. And I'm going to try to erase some of these little circles here without erasing the true false business. So we can do that. Boom. There we go. Okay, awesome. Now, let's see if we can do the second piece, all right? So the second piece, I want you to notice what's going to come first. The Y is going to come first. Let me erase some of this mess here. All right, so the Y is going to come first, and then this one is going to come second, okay? So now I'm going true, then true. So true, then true is true, so that's going to be a big T. All right, first false, then true. First false, then true. It's going to be true again. Okay. First true, then true again. It's the top one there, which is also true. And then first false and then false is also going to remain true. Okay. That's the bottom one over here. Okay. All right. So let's see if we can figure out how to do these last few problems that we have here out of 3.3. Okay. And I want you to notice what it tells me. It tells me P is true, Q is false, R is false. Find the truth value of the statement. Okay, so the first part here, P is going to be true. So I'm going to put a true. And I'm going to put an arrow. It tells me that Q is false and R is false. So false going to false. Okay. So guys, if you need to, what you're going to have to do is, let me see if I can do it this way. I'm going to clean up some of this mess here. All right. So look at what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the single arrow. First false, then false, that answer is going to be true. So I'm going to leave this first piece alone. So I'm going to go true to true. And now I'm still looking at the single arrow. So true to true is going to be true. Okay. All right. If you go back and look at your truth tables for the AND statement, okay, the AND, this is my AND statement, okay? So what do we say about P? We said P is true and Q is false, okay? Now I have my double arrow. Q is false, or let me get my pen, it's starting to freeze up again. There we go, not R. Guys, if R is false, that means that not R would have to be true, okay? So, first thing I want to mention, the only time that the AND is true is if they're both true. Well, they're not both true, so I know this is going to be false. Then I have my double arrow, okay? The OR statement. The OR statement will be true as long as one of them is true. Well, yeah, that one's true. So that's going to be true there. Now, the last part I have is, well, what is false with the double arrow and true? Well, remember, the only time the double arrow is true is if they have the same truth values. Well, they're not the same truth values, so that's going to be false, okay? If you need to go back and reference these tables here, then make sure you do that, okay? So let's try to do the same thing for the next one here. Look what it's telling me. P is true, Q is false, R is false. Okay, so if P is true, not P, it's going to be false. And If Q is false, not Q, it's going to be true, or not R. Well, if R is false, not R is going to be true. Again, I'm going to do this in pieces. Remember, this is my AND. The only time the AND is true is if they're both true. Well, they're not both true, so that's going to be false. Or true. The OR is true as long as one of them is true. Well, yeah, that one is true there. So my answer will be true. Okay. Guys, when you're doing these problems in my math lab, it's just going to ask you, is it true or false? You just got to kind of figure out why it is or why it isn't. Okay. So let's see if we can do the same thing for the next one here. All right. Look what it tells me. P is true. Well, if this is a not P, that's going to be a false. Then I have my double arrow to R, which is also false. Okay. And we have the OR, not Q. Well, if Q is false, not Q is going to be true. Double arrow to R, which is false. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do these here again in pieces. My double arrow is true as long as they have the same truth value. Well, they do. Okay. Or the double arrow is true as long as they both have the same truth value. Well, they don't. So that's false. Okay. My OR statement. My OR statement is true as long as one of them is true. Well, one of them was true, and so the whole thing is going to be true. Okay. Again, if you got to go back and reference those tables, make sure that you do so. Okay. So guys, that is 3.3.